I landed in Paris and immediately caught a Pokemon I hadn't caught yet. Then I went to McDonald's to see if they really call it a Royale with cheese, but I had fancy food anyway. Took a fancy train to a fancy palace, but I got scammed for a ticket, so I went to Notre Dame instead. The lineup went around the block, but I got in quick anyway. There was a lot of nice art, but it generally felt out of touch with the average kind of Catholic. Plus, they didn't even bring out Hunchback. Walked around the Latin Quarter and saw a store famous for not being French. Saw a bunch of creperies and 100 cafes that looked like this, plus the Seine. I went back to the Palace of Versailles with a new ticket. It was easy to think this was just a pretty building, but the symbolism means a lot more than that. Plus, they still didn't have cake. Found a big stick, so I tried walking up it. I got stair blocked by a half marathon and had to go around. Climbed some stairs and saw some views. Then I had a big growth spurt, so I had to go to the hospital. Oops, it's an army museum now. Really, it's a Napoleon museum now, so I learned a lot about him and it ended in his tomb. I took photos of his relatives' caskets, but not his, because no kings. Visited a big glass pyramid and walked way too much. Walked past a bunch of statues before seeing a statue famous because we don't know who made it. Then I walked past a bunch of paintings on route to seeing a painting famous because we don't know who's in it. Misunderstood French and waited extra long at a crosswalk. Flew to Dublin and walked 6 floors of gimmicks to get you absolutely hyped for brown beer that tastes more like meal than beer. The beer actually is red, but that's a trade secret.
Hey, I said I don't care who you are, here's to your dream. The sailors return to the bar. It's to you I had. The fat drummer had to beat with all his heart.
Saw some donkeys and some really old hills. Most of them are tombs that have some of the world's earliest art on them. If you're clever, you can see this art all over the island. Did a food tour and found out the Irish keep faces of dead heroes on their mantelplaces. Learned how to distill whiskey 4 different times and I got drunk in a church. Learning in the process that when we drink whiskey, we're all Catholic, unless you support the British.
I can get a Jameson. Bushmills okay? That's Protestant whiskey.
Found a tribute to North American natives that helped the Irish when the British tried to starve them all. Did a road trip around the prettiest part of Ireland. Took a cheesy photo with the rainbow and saw Charlie Chaplin. That was the only rainbow I saw. My favorite part was the dogs. A local told me that real Irish drink a different red beer than Guinness, but it was really hard to find. Then I stayed at a hostel that also had dogs. They were still my favorite part. I bought some train station sushi that made me feel sick, and then I took a train across the country to Galway while listening to Irish music. Walked around Galway and went to an Irish museum. Did a ghost tour on what was accidentally the busiest party night in Galway, where thousands of Irish students wear Christmas sweaters and drink in the streets. A girl on my tour from Limerick even punched one of them when he tried to get in the middle of our tour. Now that's Irish. River Corb is the fastest river in Europe, and volunteers stand on bridges all night just in case someone falls in. Back in Dublin, the most popular museum is called Epic, but the best museum is called the Little Museum of Dublin, where Dubliners throughout the decades have donated artifacts, and it's all presented to you as a one-person performance. Between that and the Guinness Factory, you'll learn everything you want to know about Dublin. They even have a room dedicated to U2 and one of Ireland's first phone books, where, until you check, it both does and doesn't have the phone number of Erwin Schrödinger of Schrödinger's cat experiment. Then I did one last Irish whiskey tasting before heading off to Nottingham in the UK. Robin Hood isn't real, but there were a lot of gangs in Nottingham, and they lived in tunnels, hundreds of kilometers of them, carved from the sandstone the city sits atop of. But I have a passion for justice, so my favorite part of Nottingham was the National Justice Museum, where you learn that in hindsight, the gangs were kind of the good guys. From Nottingham, I went to Manchester, and even though I ate at a pink restaurant, I went to the Museum of Illusions. It's a pretty boring place unless you like weaving machines or soccer. Birmingham, though, I'm convinced, is the coolest place in England outside London. They have new things next to old things next to new things that are meant to look old. It was nice to see a place with a consistent theme as dictated by their city motto, Forward, while honoring and respecting the past, and even immortalizing hometown heroes like Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne, who lives on in Grand Central Station as a giant bull. Rest in peace, Ozzy. They also have this really cool graffiti neighborhood that'll change your opinion on the art form. It weirdly felt like an unsafe neighborhood until you noticed all the fancy cars parked on the street and all the nice gastropubs one street over. Then I went to London to fly home. First I went to Westminster Abbey, which I regret not seeing sooner, and I made a pilgrimage to the Florence Nightingale Museum. Then I went to the National Gallery. I had more time here than at the Louvre, so I actually kind of enjoyed it more. Plus I found a guy who was explaining the art to his kids, so I stealthily followed him for 30 minutes so I could finally understand some of it. This was his favorite painting. It's a Rembrandt painting about a king who stole a cup of wine from the church and doomed his kingdom. It reminded me of the National Justice Museum. Then I got play tickets for £25 that almost made me miss my flight home. But now I'm here, just in time for Canadian winter. At least the sun comes out sometimes.